If you're here to listen to two nerds who have no idea what they're talking about, then you're in the right place. This is Theoretical Insights of D&D.
Before we go too far, our good friends over at Potato Candy Network, Casey and Marie, have been working on a new show for their Dreadful Tales podcast. Here is the trailer for The Island.
Hello! Bob Spuds on the scene for the Potato Candy Network. Coming up next on Dreadful Tales is The Island, a GURPS Weird West adventure actual play featuring Marie as Clarice Braden and Casey as your narrator. Join us in the days of cowboys, outlaws, and western expansion. But there are untold dangers in the west, and in the furthest reaches of the ocean there are far worse things than monsters. Once more, your mind returns to the conversation between you and Mr. Bristol. I have you fair and square, Miss Braden. Judge tells me the price for desertion is a long drop with a quick stop. Seems a mite callous to extricate one such as yourself from this world, and as I am opposed to violence against the fair sex, I'm inclined to give you an option.
An option or a devil's deal?
Ways I see it, you owe me, ma'am.
Well, never let it be said. Clarice Braden always pays her debts. Can I just take a moment looking up, just as grandiose as I can, pulling from every single snake charm salesman that I've possibly run across. Just hands out with the dagger and just bow. You're expecting a war deserter to go out and find a boat from 2 years ago? This isn't exactly my expertise.
I'm expecting you to do what you always done and save your own hide.
That is an expertise.
Make your choice. You don't have much time.
I'll pull up my gun and aim it.
Every single time. Okay.
You asked if I wanted to fight. You
If
said
this is where your character dies, this is where your character
You
dies.
said knowing he
Okay.
did really good or really bad. I don't know what that means. And how long has this been your home? It's lovely.
Ever since I was hatched.
Hatched or made?
Would you like something to eat?
The ship, the Intrepid, will be leaving in no more than a week from today. From what I understand, should be smooth sailing.
This is what you see emerging from the shadows.
Okay.
On the back of this horse is a huge person. However, you cannot see a face. It is completely covered head to toe in black. So, Miss Braden, you will go find my ship. You will find it, and you will report back to me. Are we clear?
As crystal.
How badly did you fail?
17.
You critical failed.
17.
Looking in front of you, you see what can only be described as a bone sticking up out of the sand. A bleached white bone. As you look around, it is dark except for the moon that is shining, and off in the distance you see the silhouette of a rather large island.
Hi, I'm Jeremiah.
And I'm Rob.
And I'm Eric.
There we go. There's the line. Can we get that?
Classic.
Can we get that on a shirt? And I'm Eric, just on a shirt.
I do know somebody that makes shirts.
We would sell one.
Dude, I would buy it. I'd be the one.
I'd buy it.
We have 2 sales right there, Rob. We are in business.
Hey.
Yeah. That's our new merch. Merch link in bio.
God.
Anyways, I digress.
So, the power gap. I mean, realistically, what is it?
Well, the power gap is the gap of power between martial and arcane classes, or the martial and caster classes. For example, right? A 20th level wizard can make pocket dimensions, fly, teleport, obliterate anything in its sight, where like a 20th level fighter can attack 4 times in one turn. They're both impressive feats. One is more impressive than the other.
Oh yeah, much
Now-
more impressive. Because I'm sorry, in a span of 6 seconds, I think I would be able to throw 4 punches. So 4 attacks per turn is not really that impressive.
Yeah.
Well, they're swinging with swords, not fists.
Well, I mean, you get what I mean though.
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably do some chain combos with a sword very easily.
Oh yeah.
Not in 6 seconds.
In
Oh
6
no,
seconds.
guaranteed. You ever played For Honor? The Warden.
Yeah.
They had the quick 1-2, and then yeah.
Bro, I got
Very
a sword
possible.
in the car. We'll test this out.
Let's go.
Yeah.
We'll put a video up.
But yeah, you can already see the gap of power. Like, that's the extreme at 20th level.
Yeah.
And that can be even further gap with like magic items and things of that nature. But if you look at a first level fighter versus a first level wizard, the first level
Wizard
wizard,
doesn't stand a chance.
he can throw a little globe of fire, you know.
Or a ray of frost, or maybe a hand reaches up and tickles the fighter's chin or something.
He can cast a spell that does 3d4 damage. That's automatic hits. That's impressive. But
Yeah, I mean it could be like the be all end all too.
Yeah. But at first level, you know, the fighter feels more overpowered.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but going back to the magic missile, it's 3d4 plus.
Oh yeah, +3. But it's 1d4 +1 for each dart. You
So
fire
that's-
3 darts.
Yeah,
That's a possibility of
12 plus whatever the pluses are.
it's a possibility of 15 at max roll, or it's a possibility of 6.
And at first level, a fighter's going to have, what, 12 health max? 10 health?
Yeah, 10 health if they
10.
don't. If we put everything at 0, we'll put it that way. If we put everything at 0, that way everything is even. There's no pluses to hit. There's no pluses to anything. Fighter's going to have 10 health. Wizard's going to have 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay? And what's the most common weapon you see a fighter using?
Longsword.
Longsword. What's its damage?
1d8.
Okay. They don't even have to have the modifier.
Yeah.
You know what the wizard does have to have? The modifier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Later in levels, not so much.
Yeah.
Because
But-
while the fighter is still sitting there, by 20th level, they would have, let's see, about 100 health.
But here we
Something
get
like that.
distances is what.
Yeah, it's
if
it's
you've
not
got-
only that.
If you're like 100 feet, the caster has time to cast twice, at least twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the fighter would go down.
Oh,
Wouldn't even
guaranteed.
chance to hit. Face to face, the fighter would hit.
Yeah.
Caster go down.
Well, that goes into kind of that kind of goes into the variables that we want to talk about. But before we get that, I want to define, or at least what I personally define as the different types of casters. So
There are half casters, full casters, and there's at least 1 or 2 quarter casters.
So, like, for example, a full caster, that is a class that has spell casting at level 1 and is pretty much ingrained into their class.
Yeah.
That's your basic.
That's your
strongly
wizard,
armed wizard.
your warlock, your sorcerer, your bard, your druid, your cleric. Those are full casters in my book. I would, maybe. What do you not call a full caster?
Well, the bard would be like a 3/4 caster
A 3/4 caster? Why is that?
because they have some up close.
No,
That
that's
doesn't
not
have
determining
any-
it.
yeah,
We're
that-
talking about
I was
their
about to say,
casting
because if
ability.
you were going to
Oh,
say
okay,
that,
okay.
then you would have to say the same thing about the cleric, even the war domain.
You'd have to even go into the topic
Yeah,
of the
'cause I was
blade
gonna-
singer.
I was going to say the war domain cleric would be like a half caster
No.
No, I-
because they're mostly going to be up swinging.
No.
They have the ability to cast.
well, I'm not. It's not about upfront and close ability because there's melee spell attacks.
Yeah.
I'm talking about when they have access to magic.
Oh,
That's
okay,
that's
okay.
what is my defining what type of caster they are. So those are like the full casters in my book. What I call a half caster is a class that gives you spell casting at later levels, not first level,
And this is
Not-
including,
not including subclasses.
it should.
I consider them quarter casters. Could be a half caster. It just
No, the reason I say that is because you can't consider them quartercasters, specifically when it comes to the Eldritch Knight, because it's getting the same amount of spell slots and the same number of spell slot levels as the Ranger, which is a half caster. Just because it's in a martial class, you cannot call it a quartercaster when it's the equivalent of a half caster.
I wasn't calling it a.
Like, you can't specifically label it as a quarter.
I was calling it a quartercaster because it gets it at third level instead of second.
But even still.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
That's why
I could go either way.
Yeah, that's why the way that I break down, because we break it down differently, but we kind of agree pretty much, is a full caster is anything that goes up to a 9th level spell slot, a half caster that goes up to a 5th level spell slot.
Yeah.
And those quarter casters that we're thinking of, probably more or less the only one that I can think of off the top of my head would be the Way of the Four Elements, to where you have to spend a resource to be able to do the spell, like a key point.
I would consider it that. Not I would consider the Way of the Four Elements a quartercaster.
Yeah.
Not because of having to spend a resource, because you have to spend a resource
Well,
regardless.
you get what I'm saying.
I get
though.
what you're saying.
Because there's a
resource that-
difference
Spend
between
an
a
extra resource.
yeah, there's a difference between a component and spending a key point. So it'd be like it's no different than the Battle Master. To be able to pull off the maneuvers with the Battle Master, you have to use your superiority die.
Yeah.
Now, the only difference is you're not going to be doing any extra damage as the Way of the Four Elements. Or you're not going to get an extra damage die. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. I wouldn't consider it a half caster because of that. I would consider it a half caster because of how limited of spell casting it has.
Fair.
You know, not the whole spending resource thing, because you have to spend a resource regardless. It's like, you know, you could spend an American dollar or you could spend a euro. They're both currencies. They are resources that have to be spent to obtain something, but they're different completely.
This
And one is
worth less
technically
than the
worth
other.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of my book. Now, another thing that I put as quartercasters are races that give you
Yeah.
spell casting.
That's really the only thing that fully falls into the quarter casting.
Yeah. Like,
That's going to be like a half elf, elf.
yeah, half elf, most elves.
I think.
So you're saying Daniken was a quartercaster?
Technically.
He had
I call
one spell, which was a cantrip.
yeah, he was a quartercaster.
Interesting.
Yeah, because he had it at first level,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or would have if he had come in at first level.
Yeah. I'd consider that a quartercaster. Now you can use these like fractions and, like, you know, you'll race and do different subclasses, and, you know, I'm a 3/8 caster. I don't
We're going
consider all
down to
that.
16ths over here.
All right, so this is what I define as a 1/32 caster.
For you Europeans, we're going into millimeters.
For our European
I
brethren.
mean, it's more accurate.
Mad respect for you. Also,
But here's where it's going to kick the conversation into an entirely different direction now that we've pretty much classified what is a full caster, a half caster, and a martial class. What difference, right, do the subclasses play into that? Because obviously we can sit here and compare the fighter to the wizard. We can compare the barbarian to the sorcerer. And I think that's a fair comparison when it comes to power gap because of rage and sorcerer points.
yeah.
And we can compare maybe the, maybe the ranger with the warlock. Maybe.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to compare classes because subclasses like define your character.
Exactly. Which is
Yeah.
why, unlike the first time we did this, we had no idea what the subclasses even did. To where
Well-
now, we got to talk about subclasses.
Well, with the subclasses, you have a lot of subclasses that pretty much turn the base class and flavor it to be similar to another class.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Eldritch Knight, you've mentioned that before, turns the fighter into a wizard.
Which brings,
Yeah.
turns it into a wizard that's like a paladin. Or turns it into a ranger with wizard spell list.
Nah, it just turns it into a fighter wizard. In my book.
Yeah. Fighter wizard.
Because you're relying off the intelligence modifier for your spell casting.
Yeah, that's true.
The arcane trickster, rogue wizard.
Yeah.
There was one subclass that turned one into a, what was it? Oh, the Blood Hunter?
Oh
The
yeah, the Order
Profane
of
Soul?
Profane Soul.
Yeah,
Warlock. And then there's Blade Singing, that turns the wizard into a marshal.
Yeah.
It's more similar to probably a bard or a rogue,
Yeah.
but still marshal.
Yeah. Or even really a little bit more fighter.
Maybe
A little bit.
Maybe the only.
increases-
Well, no, I would probably go more with rogue because of how they pretty much have to use a finesse weapon.
I mean,
It's
I
kind
can
of like
see
a
that.
sneak attack deal.
I can see that, but you also got to think about their increase to the AC. That's some fighter stuff right there.
Yeah,
Could be a bard.
except for the swashbuckler rogue or the College of Swords bard.
Yeah, but I mean, I can see it. It turns it more martial, not
See,
really
that-
particularly into one direction.
That's the one thing you really have to take into account when you talk about the power gap, because if you just talk about martial, half caster, full caster, then the entire power gap is going to be massively split apart
Yeah.
at first level, start to come together and possibly even meet and be almost even between the levels of maybe 9 to 13th, 14th. And then those lines are going to cross as the full casters and half casters start to rise above the marshals
Yeah.
up to 20th level.
And
Now
really-
you take those lines, you start throwing in subclasses, it starts to bring from 3rd level to 20th level, it starts to bring all those lines closer together while first level is still massively split apart.
yeah.
I mean,
it's-
look at, you've got like the druid, full caster, right? Goes Circle of the Moon. Turns it into basically a martial class.
Oh yeah, but that's only because of the wild shapes and the fact that you can go into a CR6 once you hit 20th level.
yeah.
But
Or no,
it's
once you
still-
hit,
it's still full caster.
Once you hit like 12th level,
Something like that,
isn't it
yeah.
supposed to be like half your? Yeah, I think
Yeah,
by
half your
12th
level.
level you can go to a CR6.
But then if you're not wild shape, it's back to a full caster.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then at some point you can cast spells while in wild shape
Yeah.
form. So,
And then you get your element, you get the wild shape elementals.
and
And
at
by the
20th
way-
level, just wild shape for free.
Yeah.
And by the way, we agree. We're basing this on a character sheet, kind of in our head, that no matter what the class is, what the subclass is, every modifier for every stat is at 10, to where it's neither a plus nor a minus, to where we can get the most neutral outcome of this power gap discussion as we can get. Because if we give the fighter a 20 strength, and a barbarian a 25 with, belt of storm giant strength, then we're getting into
So
the
many more
problem of the power
variables.
gap to begin with.
That's really is the big problem with the power gap, is that there are so many different things that can close the gap or make it wider that you can't just sit down one day and say, all right, this is the power gap and this is all the complexities of it.
But here's also the other thing. If we were to give the fighter a 20 strength, the wizard a 20 intelligence, and the bard a 20 charisma, or say the paladin a 20 charisma, since he's a half caster, then the power gap still stays shrunk if
Yeah.
everything else stays at 0. Because
Well-
what makes up a lot of the power gap, in my mind anyway, is access to AC, access to health. Because the spellcasters, full spellcasters like the wizard, warlock, and the sorcerer, wouldn't struggle so much at first level compared to the marshals if they had more health.
Yeah.
Because we were like we were talking about before we started, if we put everything at a base level of 0, it's 10 all across the board, and then you're going to come up and say, okay, fighter runs into a wizard, first level. Fighter, 1d10 hit points, no modifier for Constitution, has 10. Wizard, 1d6 per hit points, no Constitution modifier, has 6.
And then
Wizard has a couple of spells and cantrips that might do. He's got Firebolt, D10, no modifier.
we'll also think about this, though, the AC that comes into it, because the wizard
Yeah.
will have a 10 AC.
Yeah, the
The
fighter,
fighter
could have
11 or 12.
11 to 16.
Yeah, it depends on what type of armor, but 11 to 16.
Now, here's the other thing. Yes, the wizard has a cantrip called Firebolt, access to it anyway, that can do 1d10. However, you have to roll the 10. The fighter, on the other hand, has access to a plethora of weapons that do 1d6 and more, to where all you got to roll is a 6 or higher. It's giving you a higher percentage of one-shotting or taking down that wizard at first level.
Unless
And
the
at
wizard
that,
takes magic missile, automatic hits.
you're still relying on a roll.
No, well, you're still relying on the
Well,
damage
damage
Yeah,
roll.
that's
roll,
what
but not
it's a
hit.
guaranteed 6 damage up to a 12 damage,
Well, you're always relying on damage rolls.
obviously. But it still goes into the fighter has a chance of one-shotting the wizard, more of a chance
Yeah, more of a
than the wizard does the fighter.
Yeah.
And it's all based on health.
Yeah.
At what
But
range?
later levels, at what range?
Yeah.
Even if they start at 60 feet.
Yeah, the range does play, like, because what's the range on Magic Missile?
120.
What's the range on a longbow?
100 and I think it's 100. 150 to 300.
Oh, well, at that
I was
point,
about to say, don't forget that the fighter can use a longbow
yeah.
or a short bow, in which the longbow is still doing a D8,
Yeah.
short bow is doing a D6, both of which are more than capable of one-shotting that wizard. The only weapon that's in the game that is not capable of one-shotting a level 1 wizard with no constitution is a dagger, a sickle, or anything that's a D4. I mean, let's be honest. We can even do this. We can say the wizard versus the warlock.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a warlock's. Is it a D8 for health?
Yes, I believe so.
Wizard versus sorcerer. We'll put it almost a mirror match, but a little bit different. Now you take that magic missile into account with a 3d4 plus 1. It's a guaranteed 6 damage.
Yeah.
It's a one shot
Yeah,
automatically.
guaranteed one shot.
That's the power gap.
Yeah.
That's the power gap.
Yeah.
Where it goes from guaranteed to chance. And you have a higher chance of taking out that wizard with one hit at first level with a fighter and a longbow than you do taking out the fighter with a magic missile with a wizard.
And then if you give the fighter a longbow, then he can outrange the wizard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Range is a big deal in D&D.
That's why we really need to base it on everything hits, and the saves for spells are failed.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to have to. That's
To get
we're,
to
we're
have
going to
a-
have to base it on that, to where everything's doing its damage, to where everything is kind of even.
Yeah. Honestly, you know, the power gap is that area in between.
It's the massive gray area.
Yeah. Where anything can happen.
Yeah,
Like,
because
a lot of people want to mention, like, the gap in between the classes, but they don't want to talk about what is in the crevice.
yeah, good, and there is a
Because
lot in the crevice.
You want to know what's in the crevice that bridges that gap right at the bottom? Multi-classing.
Yep, and that's not on top of the subclassing that you get from multiclassing.
Yeah.
Because so this it's like an onion, okay, like Shrek.
Layers.
Yeah, we have layers. So it's like an onion, a cake, whatever you want to do it. The
No,
crust
no,
of the
not
earth's
a cake.
us. It's the crust of the earth. Okay, layers. You start to peel back the power gap, and you're like, oh, Marshall versus Caster, and you got half Caster mixed in there as well. That's kind of going to be in the middle because they've got the access to, by third level. Like, okay, they're right there in the middle, in between these two things.
Like
Then
a
you go
horticulture.
into another layer. Oh, subclasses.
Yeah.
And it's like, I didn't even think about that. Now it's starting to draw everything closer. Then you peel that back, multiclassing, and then everything just from third, well, I would say for multiclassing, 6th level on is just right there on top of each other.
And then
Yeah.
you got items.
Yeah.
Well, the items can be
They're minor variables.
yeah, because
Yeah, but a +1, just a simple +1 can make all the difference.
Yeah, that's true.
but in that case, if you want to go that way, then what about the
+3 robes for the wizard.
exactly?
Yeah.
That's why they make them,
Artrobes of Magi. That's why they don't need to be in the conversation.
they can easily be countered by other magic items.
Yeah.
However, there are some magic items that can give someone the ability to cast spells.
Yeah.
So that is why they can be mentioned in this conversation, but they don't do enough, in my
Not as a
opinion.
Yeah.
control kind of.
They're,
And you would say
but then,
it came into my mind. Somebody could say that, well, if you get within 10 feet of the caster, then with the fighter or a barbarian, then there's no point of even having the conversation if you're going to throw out spells too, because they counter them.
Well,
Not necessarily,
you got
because they
feats.
forget feats. You have spells as a full caster. Thunderstep,
Yeah.
Misty Step. You can create distance. You can create distance while doing damage. Thunder Wave, where you push them back because we're having to base it on them failing to save.
invisibility.
Greater invisibility. Polymorph. If you don't want to sit there as a what, eighth level wizard and fight the 8th level barbarian, polymorph into something you've seen to where you can go in as a
Polymorph
saber-tooth
him
tiger.
into his rat,
Yeah, if he fails, polymorph him into a rat. Walk away.
because that's a wisdom save
It is.
versus a
And we're
barbarian.
having to base it on them failing them.
Yeah. There's
Because here's the thing.
at
We can base it on all the attacks from the marshals hit.
yeah.
All the saves from the wizards and the casters, they fail those.
Automatic
Then we take
fails.
the average damage from those.
That's the thing, though.
Fireball.
Spells don't have to rely on damage to win the battle.
Exactly.
Because with certain spells, you can alter the terrain to make the fight pointless.
That's my
Or
entire
pass or
point.
fails, because a lot of spells, even if you pass the save, you still take damage.
Yeah. Not even to mention you could use spells to convince the other person to stop the fight.
Yeah, and we're not even going to be I don't think we need to really talk about upcasting a spell. Just spells in general.
Yeah.
Because obviously, if you fail the save on a 9th level lightning bolt or fireball, it's gonna hurt.
You know what?
Or even harm, because that's an automatic 70 necrotic damage.
I just realized something. The gap is not between the classes. You know what the gap is in between?
What's that?
How versatile something can be and how long it can be versatile.
Yeah.
Like, for example, a first level fighter can have any weapon he can pick up and be good with it. I mean, not improvised weapons, but real weapons.
Yep.
Where the wizard has, like, what, 2 or 3 spells? And some cantrips, you know? Oh, well, at 20th level, the wizard can bend reality to his will, convince a whole group of people to do the chicken dance,
While the fighter's still running in with a
and the
piece of-
fighter can just pick up a weapon and swing it 4 times.
Yep.
Or any weapon.
And that's at base level, not taking into subclasses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, if you go into subclasses, which gives you more options for versatility on how you...
Then you throw the
accurate-
Eldritch Knight on the fighter and the Blade Singing Wizard, and they're meeting perfectly in
you
the middle.
see the versatility can cause even more gap, you know?
Well, it can
Or
cause
close
even
it.
more or close it.
And then you bring into multi-classing, which brings in more versatility because you can do more and different things. But here's the thing. As we talked about in the first episode of Power Gap, at 20th level, casters outclass them. But that power gap gets closed the longer the fight goes on.
Yes.
Because once the caster's out of spells, oh boy.
That's why we're having the base. That's
But
why
then
we
again,
excuse me. That's
the-
why we have to base it on them failing the saves
I mean, they've
and the
always
attack
got
rolls hit.
cantrips.
yeah, but here's the thing.
Oh, and don't forget, 20th level, those cantrips are doing 4 or 5 D8 worth of damage.
Yeah. Yeah, but at this point, you know, like if we're not comparing the a wizard to a fighter, but against each other, but comparing them to each other as a competition,
Oh yeah.
as in like, you know, like how many guys do I have to throw at a wizard for him to finally die versus how many guys do I have to throw at a fighter for him to finally die?
You're
You
gonna
know?
have to throw a lot less at the fighter
Mm,
at 20th level for what the wizard's capable of, because you think
Are
about
they
it.
going, you throwing them at them one by
You-
one or at a mass?
I was about to say, if you throw them at a,
you throw 'em at-
if you throw them in a mass, the wizard wins.
yeah.
Lightning bolt, chain lightning, fireball, anything like that, even thunderstep,
Yeah.
thunder wave, even the simple spells
Yeah.
won't even bring up the possibility of meteor swarm.
Yeah.
I hate that spell.
You know,
I remember that episode.
I don't want to. But yeah, it's if you can do it like that, there will come a point if the battle goes on long enough where, and you look at the damage that is output,
Yeah.
the fighter is going to outclass the wizard in damage.
but
eventually.
if we were going to base it on a fight that was 50 turns, okay, we'll just say 50 turns. If we're going to base it on a fight that's 50 turns for each character or each class, I don't think that happens until halfway through to where the gap starts to close some because the wizards use some of its more powerful spells.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen, and the lines don't cross for the fighter to go back on top until probably turn 35 or
No.
40.
Turn 26.
No,
I did the math.
it
I
does
showed
not happen
you-
that soon.
I showed you. I've got it right here, you idiot. Where is it?
I can't wait to disprove this.
I was plugged up to the freaking the external hard drive in the other
Who's an
computer.
idiot now?
You still are.
I
No.
was going to say turn 30.
No, it was turn 26. But that's with the wizard cast. I remember this because this was breaking my mind. It was turn 26, and the wizard was casting all his big spells up front, and the wizard was expending all its resources. The fighter was expending all its resources up front as well. And so it was completely spend all your resources up front, and then once you run out, do the best you can. It was turn 26 when the fighter outclassed the wizard.
But see, that was also the thing, though. The fighter with 4 attacks is going to be dealing 48.
Yeah.
The wizard with 1 cantrip is going to be dealing 48. Was
bring
that
the-
taken into account?
Yeah, it was. I can't unplug it because it's downloading something.
Well, what weapons is the fighter using?
It was using a greatsword.
Just a great sword?
Well, see, we were
That's-
basing it off of something like a longsword.
No, well, I was using it because I'm just trying to get like the best that they could possibly do in the damage department.
Yeah,
And here's the thing: a fighter could use a greatsword. There's nothing wrong
obviously,
with that.
yeah.
And that's just another variable that you can add into it.
Now, if you go into the account of instead of them expending absolutely everything, because a wizard has access to wish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That changes it entirely.
Oh yeah, it really does.
If you go into them being smart with their resources,
Yeah.
it does not happen until at least 35 or 40.
Well, you also got to think about the fighter. If he's
Because if
smart
that
with his
wizard's going to
resources.
hold on to that 9th level spell slot for a while,
Yeah.
because they know I can only cast magic that powerful once. I need to hold on to that instead of being that guy that's like, okay, 9th level fireball right now. You know?
Yeah, but the 9th level fireball's so fun.
Oh, it is. I cast it. It nearly killed me.
You play
It's-
Yahtzee.
Yeah. You play Yahtzee with a regular fireball.
Yahtzee.
And a rogue with sneak attack.
Yeah.
Gosh. There's so much complexity to like the power gap, and I feel like
But
this is
it doesn't really get too complex until you peel back the first 2 layers.
yeah. I mean, you can make it complex with like looking at items and the minute details. If you have that real attention to detail, you can.
But here's the thing. The power gap is never a problem until it's causing a power gap within your own playing party.
Yeah. Well, see, I had my own personal power gap moment with Daniken and Frost. Daniken, being a Psy Warrior, was doing massive damage.
Yeah.
And I never could get that with Frost being a caster.
That's because we were only 6th level. If we had taken that campaign to 13th or 14th level, you would have seen a
Frost would have
shift.
been a whole lot better, yeah.
You would have seen a massive shift. It's like, Ford,
Yeah.
do I need to bring up the fact that I cast haste on him with wizard? Well, of course, I know that's putting them together.
Yeah.
But with the use of haste, I did 96 damage in 1 turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Octavius had fireball and lightning bolt.
That's all you
That
need.
was it.
Fireball is the only way
That
you need.
was it. He had other spells too to do damage and a little bit of control here and there, but that was it. Now, if we had taken that game to 16th level, yeah, Ford's going to be doing a whole lot of damage, but that's all he's going to do.
Yeah.
Octavius is going to be over there creating pocket dimensions, raising the dead. creating thralls of his own.
Yeah.
You know? It's a completely different conversation.
Yeah. See, Jeremiah, on this new campaign, I've got an idea.
All right.
My cleric is just going to walk around with a backpack full of scrolls of fireball.
If you can get them.
Yeah. Now, here's what I was getting at is that your own party dynamic. That's the only time the power gap becomes an actual issue.
Yeah.
Because me as a DM, I've never had a problem with the power gap from my enemies to you guys. Now, I either underestimate or overestimate you. That's the only two ways about it.
Yeah.
I don't think any DM ever gets it perfect.
I think there's a few.
Matt Mercer.
I mean,
No, not really, because I've seen them at the table and be like, they got legendary actions. Well, it's 1 versus 6. What do you think? You know, I don't think there's a DM out there that can ever get a fight absolutely perfect with what a monster can do compared to what their party of 4 to 6 people can do, because it's
plenty
pretty
who
much
can-
impossible.
You can play. There's ways to come close. I would
Yeah,
say.
there is ways to come really close.
If you did a one-shot with just a single legendary creature and took like a month to figure out every detail about it, you can make it close.
Yeah,
And like, here's the thing: you don't need the fight to be close. You need the fight to be good.
exactly.
Like, for
That'd be a good
example, what? Let's talk about Rob's campaign, because we're doing the Dreadful Six based off his campaign.
Oh boy.
What was a good fight that you remember from his game?
A fun fight?
A good one or
Good
fun?
fight?
I've got 2 in mind.
There's been quite a few.
Yeah.
The recent one with the Shadow Monk.
Even though it felt heavily one-sided.
It felt heavily one-sided, but it was a very engaging fight.
That was a well. I felt like I did nothing in that because I was like stunned or something, wasn't I?
No, you
still
did nothing but heal.
chained
Yeah, you did
for,
nothing
like,
but
over
heal.
half the fight.
Oh yeah, chained. The heal? No, that was the not the Shadow Monk. That was the undead.
Oh, the Dragon Priest.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now
Yeah,
that
the Dragon Priest was a good fight.
Dragon-
that
Priest
one
was
was
a
a
good
good fight. I spent every resource that I had in that fight.
But it wasn't like a one-shot deal either.
No, it wasn't.
Now,
See, that's the entire thing that I try to go for as a DM is bring them a fight that's going to have them using everything they got. But it's not going to be one of those things that like they're sitting at the table like there's no way we can win this.
the fight
it's gonna
after
be-
the Mafia boss.
Yeah.
I hated that one.
I went down like
The one thing you keep in mind is you're sitting at the table. If it's a good fight, if it's a really good fight, you're sitting there. We could lose this. If I don't do my job, we could lose this.
I mean, we lost Kriv.
No.
That wasn't a good fight. That was bullcrap.
Okay, it comes into do monsters and enemies make intelligence choices? They can. Okay, what kind of intelligence does a mind player have?
I'm not
Pretty
calling.
high.
I'm just saying. Like, I know you did a good job. I'm just saying it's bullcrap.
Now, see, I'm still waiting.
Here's another fight that I have in mind. I've actually got a few in mind. One that was not good: the Oni and the Green Hag. I found out that I heavily underestimated you guys.
That
Yeah,
was.
that
I
was-
enjoyed that fight.
Oh, it was fun to completely manhandle a Oni and Green Hag for y'all. Don't get me wrong, but I was standing there in shock as to how easy it was for you to
I
handle
wasn't
a
very
Oni and a
entertained
Green
by that
Hag.
fight.
The Elder Wendigo.
That one was
That
a good
one
one.
was fun.
I think that one was like probably my favorite fight for a good while.
I've still got a bag. What is it? What did I make out of his hide?
I don't know.
Did I make a bag out of his hide?
I think so. Maybe you made a bag of holding with a Wendigo side.
I think I did.
That sounds right.
So that sounds about right. Yeah.
What about the hags in Crevenshaw Wood back at level 5?
I wasn't there for that.
You were.
I was.
You were.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That was like the first fight. Yeah,
That was your first big fight because there's
that
been a
one-
lot of big
okay,
fights.
that one really set the tone for my character
Yeah, it did, didn't it?
because I was flying while prone on the ground. because like
Yeah.
we went to
And
those
then you-
hags, and I'm a Azamir sorcerer warlock, and I really spec him out to be more of a healer than a damage dealer. But I still took Eldritch Blast because you need to stay strapped or get clapped.
Yeah.
So like I am behind cover because these hags have spells, and it becomes my turn. I think you say like, all right, what do you want to do? And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna like jump out from behind cover like one of those action movies and just like finger gun Eldritch Blast at one of the hags, bam, and then I'll like land prone. And he's like, all right, you hit, you're prone, and I'm like, all right, cool. Then it comes back to my turn. And he's like, all right, you're still on the ground. I'm like, DM question, if I were to activate my wings, could I just fly around on the ground, still be prone, but not have to spend half my movement to get up? He's like, yeah, sure. So there I am, just flapping on the ground, just
hovering across
fly
the ground.
by like a darn Roomba, blasting
And
these hags.
Here's the thing that makes it impressive is that, what was it, 6 5th level characters took down a sea hag, a green hag, and a night hag. That was the coven that was there.
Yeah. Yeah, we did pretty good, didn't we?
But like I said, it's one of those deals to where, wow, we don't stand a chance in this fight. Or if I don't do my job, we could lose. That's what really makes a good fight in my mind.
Also just fun shenanigans.
Yeah, that too.
And also getting bit by a wereshark and not knowing the conclusion on that yet.
Very true. Very true.
But talking about power gap, you can definitely plateau in the multi-classing aspect. Multi-classing can get you some really powerful results in a very specific way, and they can also plateau very quickly.
But that's why I think it's smart at the session 0 for the players with the DM or without the DM to talk to each other about
Yeah.
what class they're playing, what they're planning on doing, to where maybe they can keep a power gap from happening, because the last thing you want to do is have 1 or 2 characters out of 4 or 6 become the only ones that are good at combat or outperforming everybody else so quickly at combat and in the social aspect of the power gap,
Yeah.
to where everybody else feels completely left out, because even with a good roll, they can't do it because the DM's having to put stuff up against them that can handle these 2, and the other 4 are just like, I stand no chance.
It's kind of the way I felt for the first several sessions on your campaign with Marcel.
It's because there was somebody that really knew how to build a character.
Well, not just that. It's
Well, it was also you were a first level artificer.
yeah. And you put some restrictions on my armor.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'll be the first to admit that. I started reading over the armor artificer. And I was like, no,
Hold up. wait a
Let's
minute.
make it fun though. Let's do a Monster Hunter type thing.
Yeah.
You want to make this armor? Go get the claw from a panther, and go get the horn from a rhinoceros.
That reminds me, I've got to go get some materials before we hit.
That reminds me. When's the last time you fed your panther?
It was on the ship.
Oh, the ship that's okay.
I mean, it's our ship.
Yeah, did you tell Floki to take care of it?
I don't remember.
Yeesh, buddy, you might have to bury a cat before too long.
I
I
think
will stab you.
no, I think we mentioned it because we asked if there was a place to store animals.
The cat will be taken care of because I think the dog is
I mean,
there too.
I was taking care of it while we was sailing across.
Scourge is with you, so
Yeah.
you don't have to worry
Dude,
about him.
I'm going to tell you right now, in my new campaign right now, there's going to be no pets.
We're talking about I am a pet. I'm a cat.
I am, however, going to think about a mount and see if I can get a mastiff.
Like
Not as a pet, just a mount.
like Frost.
Yeah,
You can have a mount.
it's no
But-
different than having a horse.
You have to treat it as a mount. You cannot have a pet because I am so tired of pets.
Yeah.
That's another thing about Power Gap. How many people you have on the side? When like, if you're going from the Power Gap between... All right, let me cut it back. There is a Power Gap that is not usually mentioned a whole lot, and this is the biggest Power Gap of all. It's the players and the DM.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the power, no matter what you do, that Power Gap is right there. and there is no way to bridge the gap. I mean, you could in a way, but
It's the DM's job to bridge the gap.
yeah, it's or him to allow the players to bridge the gap.
Yeah.
It's
Or it is his job to keep the gap open.
yeah, it's
Because
this-
if you send in if you've got 6 10th level characters and they run into an ancient red dragon, you don't close the power gap. That's just stupid. Okay? You just don't do that. You leave that power gap wide open and let them know you don't need to be here right now. If you stick around, it will be a TPK.
yeah.
You
And
need to
you can
vamoose.
discussing that power gap can easily lead you into DM versus player mentality, and that's
Yeah.
not good.
And it's never good.
I don't know the way a certain
However, I gotta say,
Norse
though-
god attacks people could.
No, he's never attacked anybody.
I don't know. Formir and Marcel feel pretty attacked.
Yep, he's never done any physical damage to anybody.
That doesn't mean he didn't attack us.
Exactly. You can attack people with mental. Look at boards. They attack people.
Oh,
with
we're
mental
gonna get on the conversation of hate speech now. Is that what you're saying that Loki
Bard
did?
is king of hate speech.
Yeah.
Well, in that case,
Whispers.
I'll just send in a bard next time.
I mean,
It'll be like 15 times worse.
Loki is basically a bard.
Rogue
He's-
bard, yeah,
He's flamboyant.
yeah, rogue bard. That'd be the perfect. Like if you wanted to build Loki from Norse mythology and have him be the trickster god or whatever, rogue bard would be the perfect thing.
I imagine there's going to be listeners who's like, you can't stat gods. You can do whatever we want. All right.
Yeah, this is
They
D&D
stat
5e.
Pokemon.
It's our game.
Yeah. Can't stat gods. They've statted Tiamat.
Yeah,
Technically, I don't think she's technically a god. I think she's just like a real.
well, no,
big-
I think she's considered a dragon god.
Yeah, but I don't
Now
know.
I get that it's not like
I don't
Zeus.
know. I don't know if that's
but-
the same thing as Palor. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Like, there's
There's a difference there.
there are entities that are extremely powerful. You know, but that doesn't make them a god in
Yeah.
D&D. In that kind of classification.
That's fair.
There's so much lore behind it. I don't want to get into it. I'm getting a headache just thinking
But
about
yeah.
what was that event in Forgotten Realms where like Io or Ao or whatever his name is just like, I don't like how you're behaving, gods. Now you are no longer fully gods, and they just became like lesser beings, but they're still more powerful than anything else on the world.
Yeah.
Man, talking about power.
But yeah, I mean, I think we've done a better job.
Yeah,
We've done a much better job talking about it than we did last year.
yeah. The power gap is there, and
It can either be dangerous or helpful.
yeah, because here's the thing. Sure, a power gap in the party can be, discouraging, or it could be kind of exciting. Like, for example, if you are open about it at a session 0, it's like, all right, I'm building a character who has no combat ability. I plan on building him for just social and exploration.
Yeah.
Because
That's still considered part of the power gap. Is
Yeah.
those
Well, see-
other two aspects of it.
A
And then-
power gap in the party could be a way to bring social interaction to the party.
Oh, here's another thing. If you want to talk about power gap, before Formir came along, and who else is like Aziel? Yeah, Giovanni was like the healer.
Yeah.
You know,
Giovanni was the healer.
Yeah.
and what?
That's why I brought in Aziel.
Yeah, because like here's the thing, the Sorcerer Warlock has some pretty dangerous combos that you can do. Now, of course, I never like tried to full blast like power game it because I didn't want to do that to Rob's story. But I was like, okay, I can utilize this to increase healing because when I was asking to join, I was like, hey, what does the party like have or what do they need? And like you had mentioned something like they don't really have a real dedicated healer, even though they had a cleric.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Oh, it was a grave domain.
Yeah.
They're not a healer. They're a keep
also
you
he
from
didn't
dying.
play it like a healer, you know.
Yeah, he played it like a grave domain should be played.
Yeah.
He played it like it was a keep you from dying.
Keep you from death.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you automatically do max healing when they're at 0 hit points. So why would you waste a healing spell until then?
Yeah.
Especially at lower levels.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, I want to do a healer, but I don't want to do like the stereotypical one because I will get bored with it very easily. So I was like, can I power game this? Sorcerer Warlock, baby. Divine Soul and Celestial Warlock.
So you made a finger gun, twin spelling healer.
But
Yeah.
from conversations we've had, you're kind of disappointed at how you had the power gap or power gaming because of the fact that you don't have anything above a 3rd level spell slot.
Yeah, at this point, like
You do
When-
okay healing, but not great healing.
when we
He
started,
did great healing at the first
my
lower
heal.
levels.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, my healing can be like drawn out really well and dispersed really well. It's not a full blast one go. It's a here's some, here's some, here's some, here's some. And so it can be drawn out to a combat, like throughout a combat. But because of that, he's not going to be putting out damage. Like, you could be with twin spelling all these, different spells or changing the damage type or just doing all these sorcerer warlock shenanigans. But at this point, like, we're level what, 9?
Yeah.
Yeah. At this point, he's outclassed by regular healers in a way. They can still be drawn out, but that burst, I feel like that a regular full caster that heals does is just better.
For a perfect comparison, there are 3 healing abilities in the party right now in Amani the Nature Cleric, Formir the Wildfire Druid, and Giovanni the Warlock Sorcerer multiclass.
Marcel has a few healing spells.
Well, I mean,
You don't even
it's because
compare to me,
you're
Mike.
like a 1st or 2nd level cleric.
No, I think as an artificer you had
Well, I know you went 1st level,
Yeah,
you went 4th domain,
domain, yeah.
but
That was purely RP.
in that right now, it's not going to last for too long. Formir's on the top of that healing list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Before too long, it's going to go to Amani.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's going to go to Giovanni. Giovanni's going to be on the bottom of that healing power list as far as once over. But if you go into the conversation of what's going to be over 10 rounds, right? Giovanni's going to outperform the other 2 any day of the week because you're able to heal. You're able to do a little bit of healing through your Wildfire Spirit.
I can cast any spell through the wildfire spirit.
Yeah, and isn't it something you pick up fire or tell somebody to go stand in that fire, they heal or whatever, or they do damage.
If the wildfire, I think it's if the wildfire spirit goes down, it can heal. Something like that.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah.
And then it falls to Amani.
Yeah.
Amani's going to be on the bottom of that list, but not for long because she has access to spells that you don't, like Mass Cure Wounds, Mass Healing Word,
Well, she's basically
Beacon of Hope, to
a
where she can
druid
max
that
out
wears
healing.
mail.
Do what?
She's basically a druid that wears mail armor.
Well, no, she's
That's a
actually
nature domain.
she is medium armor.
Okay.
It's just she's got a shield.
Yeah.
But no, it's one of those deals to where the cleric is going to start rising
Oh yeah. Yeah, she's gonna outclass Formir.
when it comes to healing.
Yeah.
And
But
unfortunately, Giovanni's already outclassed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
in
when
the
it comes
long
to
run-
damage, Giovanni's got both of them outclassed.
Yeah.
well,
Just through Eldritch Blast and the possibility of twin spelling.
Well, I don't know. Formir can
I
cast
can't-
Fireball.
I can't twin spell Eldritch Blast.
No, of course not, but you can twin spell other if you have any other damaging spells.
I think I have like a few others, and I don't think they're targeting things. I have the Shadow Blade, which is a good combo. Green Flame Blade that combos with the Shadow Blade. So I have
Yeah.
the potential to damage, but it's not really relying on like the twin spell build.
Yeah. But I mean, really, that's what we know and that's what we understand about the power gap.
Yeah.
And there are probably others out there that understand it a lot better than we do.
And you've probably experienced in an own unique way that no one else has.
Yeah, I guarantee you've probably felt the power gap at some point in your game or as you're running your game, whether it be because this person's character is way outperforming this person's character in more than one area of play, whether it be combat, social, or exploration. That's where the power gap would really become, kind of dangerous. Or as a DM running it to where it's like, wow, this is crazy,
Yeah, you've had a few of those moments.
Yeah, I've really had a few of those moments. So,
Underestimates, does he?
yeah, the power gap is like we said, a massive gray area with a chasm that if you really start to dig into it, you can really fully understand it. But you kind of have to base everything off of a level playing field.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
Because if you go into saying every hit's a crit and everything's a critical fail to where everything's doing double damage or whatever you want to say, then it's impossible.
Let's say that's what.
And if you wanted to say-
D&D,
Yeah, it's all based on a roll.
it's so much you can do and not be
Yep.
the same as everybody else.
yeah.
There's so much customization in D&D.
Well, me and you're playing a Peace Domain Cleric.
Mm-hmm.
I could play a Peace Domain Cleric and be completely different than your Peace
Yeah.
Domain.
Yeah.
Because my Peace Domain Cleric is going to be more of a upfront fighter healer,
Yep,
where you could be playing one in like a cloth robe and a stick, and he'll sit back and heal.
yep. But what are we doing next episode, Jeremiah?
We
And
are
Eric,
doing-
since you're, we may as well call you part of the podcast now.
welcome, part of the ship, part of the crew.
I don't want to be part of the crew. You got to work.
Too bad. Your cancer ain't getting you out of this work.
But I'm disabled.
So
I
so
can't-
are we.
It's okay. You're not getting paid for this. We aren't.
You're disabled. Guess what? I got bad kidneys, and Rob's got buck teeth. All right, we're both disabled in different ways.
I've got other problems too that shouldn't be mentioned on the show.
Yeah, I wasn't going to talk about that.
But yeah, we may as well consider you a full member of the TID&D now.
Just a reoccurring guest.
Yeah.
I can deal with that.
Yeah. So I'm insightful Jerry. You're theoretical Rob. What's his name?
Can't
And
miss
Eric.
What?
And Eric.
And Eric.
Yeah.
That's it right there. All right, I think that's the end of this episode. Oh no, we're going to talk about what we're doing next.
Duh.
Yeah.
You. Oh my. You literal buffoon.
Hey, listen, you call me insightful Jerry, not intellectual Jerry.
You got a good wisdom score, not an intelligence.
No. What are we doing next episode?
We're going to do a little kind of improv. Eric has prepared a little kind of plot hook storyline, kind of like a little historical context for a world that is not made. He's going to kind of present that on the next episode, and then he is going to be asking us questions about that world that doesn't really exist. And we're going to have to come up with the answers off the top of our head to basically build a world through improv.
Yep.
It's going to be fun.
Can we call you Improv Rob and him Theoretical Eric? There's a way to combine Theoretical and Eric some way. I just can't think.
Theoretic Eric.
Yeah, Theoretic Eric and Improv
Sounds like you're
Rob.
saying diabetic Eric.
Insightful Jerry.
Theoretical Diabetical. That's staying.
Theoretical diabetical. I like it. I'm
That's
going to
it
put
right
that on
there.
a shirt.
That's merch link in bio. Oh, we don't have any merch.
Oh,
We need name tags.
Yeah.
And mine will be about 6 inches long.
Theoretical Diabetical.
Oof.
Improv Rob and Insightful Jerry.
Either way, in the meantime,
Keep on rolling high.
we'll see you in the next one.
It's D&D.